In the vast expanse of the universe, a lone human explorer named Jace found himself adrift in an uncharted sector of space. His ship, damaged by a meteor storm, spiraled out of control towards an unknown planet. With a heavy heart, Jace braced for impact, his life flashing before his eyes as the ground rushed up to meet him. Miraculously, Jace survived the crash, his ship a twisted wreck scattered across an alien landscape. As he emerged from the smoking debris, he found himself face to face with a group of curious beings, the Zephyrians. These gentle, ethereal creatures were unlike anything Jace had ever encountered. Their translucent skin shimmered in the sun, and their large, almond-shaped eyes radiated wisdom and compassion. Despite the language barrier, Jace and the Zephyrians began to communicate through gestures and basic vocalizations. The aliens were fascinated by Jace's technology, marveling at the foreign materials and intricate designs of his ship's remains. In turn, Jace was drawn to their simple yet elegant way of life, their homes and tools seamlessly integrated with the natural world around them. As the days passed, Jace and the Zephyrians worked together to salvage what they could from his ship, repurposing components to enhance the aliens' own devices. Jace's ingenuity and resourcefulness impressed the Zephyrians, who had never seen such adaptability and determination. In return, they shared their deep connection to the planet, teaching Jace about the delicate balance of their ecosystem and the wisdom of living in harmony with nature. Through their cooperation and shared experiences, Jace and the Zephyrians formed an unlikely but powerful bond. They laughed together as they struggled to understand each other's jokes, and they marveled at the beauty and diversity of the universe that had brought them together. For Jace, this encounter was a revelation, a reminder that even in the depths of space, the human spirit could find connection and purpose. However, their peaceful collaboration was about to be shattered by an unforeseen threat. On the horizon, a dark cloud gathered, heralding the arrival of a hostile alien race known as the Crix. These belligerent beings had intercepted the Zephyrians' communications about Jace and his technology, and they saw this newfound partnership as a danger to their own dominance in the sector. As the Crix ships descended upon the planet, Jace and the Zephyrians knew that they faced an existential crisis. They would have to draw upon all their combined knowledge, skills, and courage to defend their way of life and the bond they had forged against all odds. The battle for survival was about to begin, and the strength of the human-Zephyrian alliance would be put to the ultimate test. The Crix's arrival sent shockwaves through the peaceful Zephyrian village. Their ships, angular and foreboding, loomed in the sky like harbingers of doom. Jace, his instincts honed by years of exploration and survival, immediately recognized the hostile intent in the aliens' movements. As the Crix landed and emerged from their ships, their true nature became apparent. These aliens were a warrior race, their bodies clad in thick, chitinous armor, and their faces contorted in perpetual scowls. They carried an array of advanced weapons, pulsing with malevolent energy. The Crix commander, a hulking brute with a scar across his face, strode forward and addressed the Zephyrians in a guttural, alien tongue. Jace, unable to understand the words, could nonetheless sense the menace and disdain dripping from every syllable. The Zephyrians, unaccustomed to such aggression, recoiled in fear. They looked to Jace for guidance, their trust in him evident in their pleading eyes. Jace, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, knew he had to act fast to protect his new friends. Drawing upon his ingenuity and resourcefulness, Jace quickly assessed the materials available to them. He began to improvise weapons and fortifications from the remnants of his ship and the Zephyrians' own tools. Working side by side with the aliens, he showed them how to create makeshift shields from scavenged metal and how to fashion spears from the tough, flexible wood of the local trees. The Zephyrians, though initially hesitant, quickly adapted to Jace's instructions. Their natural dexterity and quick minds allowed them to master these new skills with impressive speed. Together, they fortified the village, erecting barricades and setting traps to slow down the Crix's advance. As the preparations continued, Jace and the Zephyrians' bond deepened. The shared experience of facing a common enemy brought them closer, their differences fading away in the face of their united purpose. Jace marveled at the Zephyrians' bravery and determination, their gentle nature belying a core of steel. The Crix, growing impatient with the defiance shown by the human and the Zephyrians, launched their attack. They stormed the village, their weapons spitting deadly energy bolts. Jace and the Zephyrians fought back with everything they had, their improvised weapons and clever tactics taking the Crix by surprise. The battle was fierce and brutal, with losses on both sides. Jace, his human reflexes and combat training giving him an edge, led the defense, inspiring the Zephyrians with his bravery and tenacity. The aliens, in turn, fought with a ferocity born of their desire to protect their home and their newfound friend. In the end, the Crix were driven back, their attack repelled by the cunning and courage of the human-Zephyrian alliance. However, as the smoke cleared and the wounded were tended to, Jace knew that this was only the beginning. The Crix, their pride wounded and their fury stoked, would undoubtedly return with even greater force. Jace and the Zephyrians had won the day, but the war was far from over. They would need to draw upon all their combined strength, wisdom, and ingenuity to face the challenges ahead. The fate of their worlds and the future of their unprecedented partnership hung in the balance. In the aftermath of the Crix's initial attack, Jace and the Zephyrians wasted no time in preparing for the inevitable return of their enemy. They knew that the Crix, driven by their warrior culture and their desire for dominance, would not rest until they had eliminated the perceived threat posed by the human-Zephyrian alliance. Jace, his mind racing with ideas and strategies, worked tirelessly to enhance the Zephyrians' defenses and technology. He delved into the depths of his scientific knowledge, combining it with the Zephyrians' own understanding of their planet's resources. Together, they crafted new weapons and tools, each one a testament to the power of their collaboration. The Zephyrians, their curiosity and eagerness to learn overcoming their initial trepidation, absorbed Jace's teachings like sponges. They learned to create more advanced traps and alarms, using the natural features of their landscape to their advantage. Under Jace's guidance, they honed their skills in hand-to-hand combat, their lithe forms and quick reflexes making them formidable fighters. As the days turned into weeks, the village transformed into a well-oiled defensive machine. Watchtowers rose from the treetops, manned by vigilant Zephyrian sentries armed with long-range communication devices cobbled together from Jace's ship and their own technology. Hidden caches of supplies and weapons were scattered throughout the surrounding forest, ensuring that they would never be caught off guard. Jace and the Zephyrians also worked to deepen their understanding of each other's cultures and ways of thinking. They spent long hours in conversation, sharing stories of their past and their hopes for the future. Jace learned of the Zephyrians' rich history and their deep spiritual connection to their planet, while the aliens marveled at tales of Earth and the vast diversity of human civilization. Through these exchanges, the two species forged a bond that transcended mere alliance. They became a family. The Zephyrians, who had always lived in harmony with each other and their environment, embraced Jace as one of their own. And Jace, who had spent so long wandering the stars in search of purpose, found a sense of belonging he had never known before. However, even as they grew closer and their defenses grew stronger, the specter of the Crix loomed large on the horizon. Scouts reported sightings of Crix ships amassing in orbit, their numbers growing by the day. It was clear that the enemy was preparing for a full-scale invasion, one that would test the limits of the human-Zephyrian alliance's resilience and determination. Jace and the Zephyrians knew that they faced an uphill battle. The Crix's technology and firepower far outstripped their own, and their numbers were vastly superior. But they also knew that they had something the Crix could never understand: the strength of their bond and the power of their united will. As the final preparations were made and the village settled into a tense, watchful silence, Jace and the Zephyrians steeled themselves for the fight of their lives. They knew that the coming battle would be the crucible in which their partnership would be forged, a trial by fire that would determine the fate of their two species. Come what may, they would face it together, united by their shared courage and their unshakable belief in each other. The human and the Zephyrians, two disparate beings brought together by chance and bound by choice, would stand as one against the darkness, a beacon of hope and defiance in a universe consumed by conflict. The sky above the Zephyrian village darkened as the Kryk's ships descended, their hulls gleaming with the dull sheen of advanced weaponry. The air crackled with tension as Jace and the Zephyrians took their positions, their improvised defenses and makeshift weapons at the ready. Jace, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination, looked out over the assembled defenders. These gentle, peaceful beings had become warriors out of necessity, their faces etched with a resolute courage that belied their gentle nature. He felt a swell of pride and affection for them, a fierce protectiveness that strengthened his resolve. As the Kryks landed and poured out of their ships, the battle began in earnest. The aliens advanced on the village, their weapons spitting bolts of searing energy. The Zephyrians, guided by Jace's tactical knowledge, met them head-on, their own weapons and traps slowing the enemy's advance. Jace, armed with a plasma rifle salvaged from his ship and modified with Zephyrian technology, fought at the forefront of the defense. His human reflexes and combat training, honed by years of exploration and survival, made him a formidable warrior. He moved among the Zephyrians, shouting encouragement and directing their efforts, his presence a rallying point for their courage. The Zephyrians, for their part, fought with a skill and ferocity that surprised even Jace. They used their intimate knowledge of the terrain to their advantage, luring the Kryks into carefully prepared kill zones and unleashing devastating ambushes. Their lithe forms darted among the trees, their movements graceful and deadly. Despite their valiant efforts, however, the tide of battle began to turn against them. The Kryks, their numbers seemingly endless, pressed forward with relentless determination. Jace watched in horror as Zephyrians fell around him, their luminous blood staining the ground. The village, once a peaceful haven, became a nightmare landscape of smoke, fire, and death. Jace, his heart heavy with grief and rage, rallied the remaining defenders for a final stand. They fell back to the heart of the village, using the remnants of their defenses to create a makeshift fortress. The Kryks, sensing victory, surged forward, their weapons blazing. In that moment, with all seeming lost, Jace and the Zephyrians unleashed their secret weapon. From hidden caches and underground bunkers, they revealed a fleet of drones and automated turrets, each one painstakingly crafted from the remnants of Jace's ship and the Zephyrians' own technology. These machines, powered by a fusion of human ingenuity and Zephyrian resourcefulness, swarmed the Kryks' ranks, catching them off guard and sowing chaos in their midst. The tide of battle turned once more, the Kryks falling back in disarray before the unexpected onslaught. Jace and the Zephyrians pressed their advantage, their spirits soaring with renewed hope. They fought with a savage joy, their bond, and their shared purpose giving them strength beyond measure. In the end, the Kryks were routed, their once proud army reduced to a tattered remnant fleeing back to their ships. Jace and the Zephyrians stood victorious amidst the ruins of their village, their hearts heavy with loss, but alight with the knowledge that they had achieved the impossible. As the smoke cleared and the wounds were tended to, Jace and the Zephyrians knew that their struggle was far from over. The Kryks, though defeated, would not rest until they had avenged their humiliation. But for now, in this moment of triumph and sorrow, the human and the Zephyrians stood together, bound by a love and a loyalty that transcended species and circumstance. They had fought the battle for survival, and they had emerged victorious. And though the road ahead was long and fraught with danger, they knew that they would face it as they had faced everything else, together, united by the unbreakable strength of their bond. In the aftermath of their hard-fought victory, Jace and the Zephyrians took stock of their situation. Their village lay in ruins, the once verdant landscape scorched and scarred by the fury of battle. The cost in lives had been high, with many brave Zephyrians laying down their lives in defense of their home and their human friend. But even as they mourned their losses and tended to their wounds, Jace and the Zephyrians knew that they could not afford to rest on their laurels. The Kryks, though defeated, were far from broken. Even now, their ships regrouped in orbit, their commanders no doubt plotting their revenge. Jace, his mind racing with possibilities, hit upon a daring plan. If they could strike at the heart of the Crix's military apparatus, their communication and control systems, they might be able to cripple their ability to wage war. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance they had to end the conflict once and for all. The Zephyrians, their trust in Jace absolute, rallied to his call. They knew that they were asking the impossible, that they were pitting their meager resources against the might of a vastly superior foe. But they also knew that they had no choice. The alternative was extinction, the end of their way of life and the bond they had forged with their human friend. Under cover of night, Jace and a hand-picked team of Zephyrians set out on their desperate mission. They slipped through the ruined landscape like ghosts, their movements masked by the clever use of holographic decoys and jamming devices cobbled together from the remnants of Jace's technology. Their target was a heavily fortified Crix outpost, a linchpin in their communication network. If they could take it out, they would effectively blind and deafen the enemy, rendering them vulnerable to a coordinated assault. As they approached the outpost, the scale of the challenge before them became clear. The facility was a fortress, ringed by layers of defenses and patrolled by heavily armed Crix warriors. Jace and his team, their resolve unwavering, began their infiltration. What followed was a heart-stopping game of cat and mouse, with Jace and the Zephyrians using every trick and tactic at their disposal to evade detection and breach the outpost's defenses. They crawled through ventilation ducts, hacked security systems, and engaged in lightning-fast skirmishes with Crix guards, always staying one step ahead of their pursuers. Finally, after a nerve-wracking series of close calls and narrow escapes, they reached the heart of the outpost, the central control room. There, Jace put his technical skills to the ultimate test, hacking into the Crix's own systems and turning their technology against them. It was a moment of pure exhilaration, a triumph of human ingenuity and Zephyrian courage against seemingly impossible odds. With a few keystrokes and a daring bit of sabotage, Jace sent a cascading failure through the Crix's communication network, effectively isolating their forces on the planet's surface. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Crix, their ships suddenly cut off from their ground forces, fell into disarray. Seizing the moment, the Zephyrians launched an all-out assault, their makeshift fleet of drones and repurposed vehicles swarming the enemy's positions. Jace and his team, their mission complete, fought their way out of the outpost and back to the waiting Zephyrians. Together, they watched as the Crix forces, once so formidable, crumbled under the onslaught. It was a sight that none of them would ever forget, the mighty brought low, the oppressed rising up to claim their freedom. In the end, the Crix had no choice but to surrender. Their communications in tatters, their forces in disarray, they had no hope of mounting an effective resistance. Jace and the Zephyrians, their improbable alliance tested in the crucible of war, had emerged victorious against all odds. As the Crix ships lifted off, their departure a tacit admission of defeat, Jace and the Zephyrians came together in celebration and mourning. They had won their freedom, but the cost had been high. Many brave souls had given their lives so that others might live in peace. But even in their grief, there was a sense of hope and possibility. The human and the Zephyrians had shown that even the most unlikely of allies could achieve the impossible when united by a common cause. They had forged a bond that transcended species and circumstance, a testament to the power of cooperation and compassion. As they began the long process of rebuilding, Jace and the Zephyrians knew that their story was far from over. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and they had only begun to scratch the surface of what they could achieve together. But whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they had faced everything else, side by side, united by the unbreakable strength of their friendship. In the wake of their stunning victory over the Crix, Jace and the Zephyrians set about the task of rebuilding their shattered world. It was a daunting prospect. The scars of war ran deep, and the road to recovery would be long and arduous. But they were not alone in their efforts. Word of their triumph had spread like wildfire across the galaxy, inspiring other oppressed species to rise up against their own oppressors. The human-Zephyrian alliance had become a symbol of hope and defiance, a beacon of light in a universe too often consumed by darkness. Emboldened by this newfound sense of solidarity, Jace and the Zephyrians reached out to other worlds, forging new alliances and sharing their hard-won knowledge. They became a nexus of resistance, a hub of innovation and cooperation that drew the downtrodden and the dispossessed from every corner of the cosmos. Under Jace's guidance, the Zephyrians' technology advanced by leaps and bounds. They learned to harness the power of their planet's unique resources, creating new wonders that blended the best of human ingenuity and Zephyrian artistry. Their cities rose from the ashes of war, gleaming spires of light and beauty that stood as testament to their resilience and their indomitable spirit. But even as they marveled at their own progress, Jace and the Zephyrians knew that their work was far from done. The Crix, though humbled, were not defeated. They had retreated to their own corner of the galaxy, licking their wounds and plotting their revenge. Determined to strike a decisive blow, Jace and the Zephyrians began to plan a final offensive. They would take the fight to the Crix's own doorstep, using every resource and ally at their disposal to end the threat once and for all. It was a bold plan, fraught with risk and uncertainty. But Jace and the Zephyrians had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. They knew that they had the strength, the courage, and the unity of purpose to see their mission through to the end. As they made their final preparations, Jace and the Zephyrians took a moment to reflect on all that they had been through together. They had started as strangers, separated by the vast gulf of space and culture. But through their shared struggles and triumphs, they had become something more, a family, bound by ties of love and loyalty that transcended all boundaries. And now, as they stood on the brink of their greatest challenge yet, they drew strength from that bond. They knew that whatever happened, they would face it together, the human and the Zephyrians, two disparate species united by the power of friendship and the unshakable conviction that anything was possible when beings of goodwill stood together against the darkness. With a final rallying cry, Jace and the Zephyrians set out on their last great adventure. They sailed across the stars, their ships a mighty armada bearing the hopes and dreams of countless worlds. They struck at the heart of the Crix Empire, using every trick and tactic they had learned in their long struggle. And in the end, through courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable strength of their bond, they emerged victorious once more. The Crix, their power broken and their will shattered, at last laid down their arms in surrender. A new era of peace and cooperation dawned across the galaxy, with Jace and the Zephyrians at its vanguard. As they stood together in the light of a new day, the human and the Zephyrians knew that their story would be remembered for generations to come. They had shown the universe that the bonds of friendship and the power of unity could overcome any obstacle, no matter how vast or daunting. And though the road ahead would be long and the challenges many, they knew that they would face them as they had faced everything else, together, side by side, bound by the love and loyalty that had carried them through the darkest of times and into the brightest of futures. For in each other, they had found something more precious than any treasure, more enduring than any empire. They had found the true meaning of home and the unshakable knowledge that as long as they had each other, anything was possible. And so ends the epic tale of Jace and the Zephyrians, a story of courage, friendship, and the unbreakable human spirit. Through their trials and triumphs, they showed us that the bonds we forge have the power to change the universe, that even the most unlikely of allies can achieve the impossible when united by a common cause. May their example inspire us all to reach out across the divides that separate us, to find common ground and common purpose in the face of adversity. For in the end, it is not the strength of our arms or the might of our machines that will carry us through the darkness, but the strength of our compassion, the might of our unity. Let us remember the lessons of Jace and the Zephyrians, and let us strive to build a future in which all beings, no matter their form or origin, can stand together in the light of a better tomorrow. For in that future lies the greatest adventure of all, the adventure of a universe united, a cosmos made whole by the power of friendship and the unshakable resilience of the living spirit.